Before jumping into this video, I wanted to make a quick addendum to my previous video about decolonizing love, where I mentioned the book More Than Two, a book that was co-written by Franklin Vo and Eve Rickard. It was brought to my attention that there's actually a second edition of More Than Two that completely excludes Franklin Vo, and I am very, very, very happy to announce that, as in my opinion, Franklin Vo has always been the thing that has sabotaged More Than Two as a resource for the polycurious. For those who may be a bit confused, in my previous video I said, if I was going to tell you a resource to look into about polyamory, learning about the pitfalls of polyamory, especially navigating through it if you are in a couple, I would actually direct you to www.itrippeddownthepolystair.com, which is a website dedicated to several victims of Franklin who have called out the fact that many of the stories that he tells in More Than Two and his other book, The Game Changer, were based on distortions. On the website, they outline their experiences with Franklin Vo, who very clearly manipulated and mistreated his partners in a great way. As More Than Two is one of the top resources for polyamory, I've often felt strange knowing that I knew the truth of Franklin Vo, but that it wasn't very widely known. When you look up More Than Two, you are predominantly going to be led to his website and his name. However, Eve Rickard has suffered pretty greatly because of Franklin Vo's actions and has fought very hard to make a new version of the book, including the voices of some of the people that have been negatively impacted by Franklin Vo, and has gone on to create the second edition of More Than Two. I stand by what I said in my previous video, but it is still very important to point people towards the second edition of More Than Two that does not include Franklin Vo at all. And I appreciate those of you guys who drew my attention to this fact, including Eve Rickard, and I hope that we can see more positive things come from Thornapple Press in the future. Anyway, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. One of the things that we like to do here on the katblaque channel is discuss things that are commonly misunderstood or misrepresented. And one of those things, of course, is polyamory. Now, we've known for a while that reality TV is trash, but I was not quite prepared for PolyFamily. It was outlandish and intriguing in some very specific ways. Also quite boring, if I'm being honest. And while the show is obviously fake and probably very over-exaggerated, I still felt the need to bring PolyFamily over to this channel and have a conversation with you guys about it, because I just thought there were so many little things that I thought would lead to some very hot and introspective conversations over here on the katblaque channel. But of course, I am getting ahead of myself yet again. Hi, my name is katblaque, and I like to think that I make content for introspective hot people. And if you're here, well, of course, I assume that's you. And if you're brand new here, you know exactly what to do if this video pleases you. You just click on my button and join us right here on the channel. So I have to be really honest with you. I thought that PolyFamily was really boring. It was not a great reality TV show. It's only 6 episodes. It definitely felt like 20. And I think if you're wanting to watch it, if you can get like the abridged version of the show, I guess that's what this video is. So maybe just send this to your friends instead of doing that screening that you may be planning to do, because frankly, I don't know if it was really worth it. I don't really know if it was worth it. The only reason I'm making this video, frankly, is because I sat through it and I still thought that it was worth talking about. PolyFamily is a TLC reality TV show where couples who met online navigate blending their families and building one together as a closed quad. This means that no partners are being added to their family while they're still dating each other. The men date both women, but the women do not date each other, and neither do the men. Tyler and Alicia have been married for 11 years, and they came into their relationship with 2 children. Despite this, they've decided to raise their children collectively, and their goal with new children is not to place any emphasis on birth parentage. The show documents the pregnancy of Taya, who is the other woman in the dynamic. Sean and Taya have been married for 6 years. They have a wide age gap, and they started dating when Sean was managing Taya. We'll come back to that later. Taya is openly pansexual and sex positive, and they opened up their marriage so that Taya could explore her sexuality. Unfortunately, however, Alyssa isn't attracted to women. The show demonstrates the various dynamics between the couples, but it's clear that in both couples, there's a person who's more of a fun-loving individual and more of a organized type A individual. And this becomes an issue when they start parenting together. The quad agreed that everyone should have the ability to parent the children regardless of their biological lineage. There are several scenes, however, where Sean is parenting the children that Tyler still very much internalizes as his children. There's a scene where Sean tries to alienate Tyler from his daughter because she was currently being punished, and it rubbed a lot of people in the wrong way for reasons that we will get to in a bit. But the conflict around parentage is a huge deal this season because both men want to maintain ignorance around who is truly the father. They worry that acknowledging this would somehow bias them towards the child, and that is something that they are trying to avoid. However, when Tyler mistakenly thinks that sharing a blood type with his child is proof, Sean becomes aware of it, and it causes significant conflict between the partners. Tyler and Alyssa have, in the past, fled with their children, leaving Taya and Sean behind, so they're trying to avoid being in that situation again. And part of the show involves finding a legal solution for them where all people are able to have rights over the children regardless of the circumstance. They live in Lebanon, Oregon, where it seems like there are some legal hurdles to them reaching that goal. It's established very early on that the two men don't particularly care for each other, but they do care for these women. Tyler and Alyssa are more fun, pushover parents, but Sean and Taya are more disciplinarian. Sean and Alyssa are more type A and organized, while Tyler and Taya are a bit more creative and sex positive. And this, of course, causes a bit of trouble in the show. Sean is very much the villain of the show, and Alyssa is the one who makes the rules about how the quad practices their non-monogamy. The two women have their own rooms, and the men switch every day. Alyssa's rule that everyone agreed on was that when it came to sex, you only have sex the day that you're supposed to be with that partner. And Alyssa doesn't want to know the ins and outs of what happens. These rules were put in place to quell what Alyssa felt was an imbalance in their dynamic, with Tyler often opting to have sex with Taya over Alyssa. Taya is the more sex positive of the two, and both Sean and Tyler seem to think that Alyssa isn't very kinky or interested in these things as much as they are. They make a point of saying that Sean and Alyssa haven't really been having sex, and it's clear that Sean prefers speaking to Taya about personal things. One morning, Sean decides to have sex with Taya, which really upset Alyssa. Firstly, because she heard about it happening, and then because it violated one of her rules. This was on top of Sean confiding in Taya when he thought that he couldn't be the father of their child. Once Taya gave birth to baby Quentin, the boys flipped a coin to see who would get to go on their first date post-birth, and Tyler won the coin toss. Tyler organizes a lavish romantic date, and this hurts Alicia, who wishes that just once Tyler would plan similarly romantic things for her. When she's describing the difference between her relationship with Tyler and Sean, she says that Tyler will do anything that she wants, but Sean knows exactly what she needs before she knows she needs it. In the show, it seems pretty clear that when it comes to sex, both men sort of prefer Taya, but when it comes to function and organization, they prefer Alyssa. Alyssa also speaks very openly about having a degree of envy for Taya's confident sexuality and how the men treat her versus how they treat Taya. During Taya's pregnancy, Alyssa tries to encourage her body to start producing milk, hoping to be able to help Taya breastfeed. It's clear that both mothers want to have a hand in raising the child together in a way that feels intimate to them. Again, they're trying to not make birth parentage a huge deal. Alyssa even goes to a specialist to see if she can get herself to produce milk, but unfortunately she was unable to. Much of the TLC audience thinks that Alyssa is getting the short end of the stick, mainly because at the time of the show's filming, the men have primarily used their time sleeping next to Alyssa for sleeping, with a baby being there and all. At the end of the season, Taya introduces a new woman named Lexi and comes to the quad with the idea of opening up so that she can pursue a relationship with a woman. And this becomes a huge source of debate within the quad, with Tyler suggesting that they should all be open so that it's actually ethical. And this is where the show ends, and we don't really know where that goes, and I don't think we'll be seeing it, as I found out that the show is actually canceled. And now I also wanted to bring this up before we jump into my thoughts about the show. The people who are in this show are social media people who have been trying to make it work for a while, right? They have come out and stated that many of the things in the show are exaggerated. Some of the things are fake. Like apparently Lexi, the woman who shows up at the very, very end that wants to date Taya, apparently they have already been in a relationship for quite some time by the time they had that filming day. So, but we're going to treat this like it isn't. We're going to treat this like it isn't because, of course, most people who are watching this are probably not going to have that nuanced thought of maybe this reality TV isn't reality. I mean, I would like to think that people already know this and it's like obvious to them, but I've been sent too many like AI videos from people to believe that people have that much sense, if I'm being honest. So I actually thought it would be a really interesting exercise for me to go over the questions that I found myself asking and give you my answer while also hoping that you guys can start thinking of one for yourself too. So the first question I had for myself and for my audience is, would you raise a child collectively with your metamor, aka with the partner of your partner? I personally don't know. I know that I don't want to have kids. I think if I did, it would be helpful to have more than one person doing it. I do think that there is something to raising children in general in a more collective way where the children belong to the community and less so these two people who are just responsible for their parentage, right? So there is a part of that I appreciate, but I personally have not wanted to have children. And I'm thankful that I do not have children. And I very intentionally only date people who do not have children because I've learned in my previous relationships with men who have kids that, and this is a good thing, men who have children are always going to prioritize and censor those children, meaning that I am not going to be able to get as much attention from them. And I guess I want attention. So, it's hard for me to date someone who has children unless they are older children and they do not need the amount of parenting. I would also have a hard time dating a man who had kids who would be like comfortable with seeing me so frequently and not spending time with their child, right? So I don't want to date anyone with children. So I don't know. I guess my answer in a way is yes. I would want to raise a child with a metamor because I think it would probably be a better way to raise a child. But do I plan on doing that anytime soon? Nah. Most of the people that I know who have children who are polyamorous are people who started dating monogamously, I guess, and they had a marriage and they had kids in those marriages, and then they started to date people after those children got a little bit older, right? I know very few people with very young children who are polyamorous and raising their children collectively. Most of the people I know that are parents with children who are polyamorous are people who kind of waited until their kids are not in the house. And I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing, right? But from my observation, very few people even end up in a situation like this. And if I'm being frank with you guys, the vibe I kind of got from watching this show was that maybe that's for a reason, because it seems like there's a bit of tension in the house that probably would not be there if people were not living this way. And you don't have to, I don't think. But I guess it is kind of admirable that they're trying to. I'll definitely say that of the people I know that are similar to people in this show, like people who are raising their children with metamors and such, it's not this dramatic. In fact, it can't be, right? Like it really can't be. I think the cool thing about polyamory, and this is where I could see this working out, a lot of times when you are dating the right people, when you get together as a group of people, it's like you're a super group, because a lot of times like you date people who are similar enough to each other for them to all come together and get along, right? People don't always need to get along. People don't always need to be friends, right? Like Nathan, who is my longest standing partner, of the people that I'm dating, he's the only partner whose partners I've never met. Everyone else, I've met their partners. We've had, gatherings and things together, but it is what it is, right? I've only really been able to have one relationship where that's worked out. It just so happens to be my longest relationship, right? But typically I find that when metamors don't get along, that's a bad sign. What I love about my partners is they're all engineers. I can just ask one of them a question and they'll all answer. They'll all answer and then they'll all have a very passionate take. And so I can see how stuff like that would work really well in like a child rearing situation where you've got all of these capable people who have very similar qualities who would probably understand each other's systems really easily, working together to a common goal. I could see why that would be a value and a benefit. And for the people I know who are polyamorous, who do have kids, who do this sort of collective raising of children, that's kind of what it is. They all really, 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 really get along. That's why I think it is kind of strange that Sean and Tyler have such an issue with that. Because I do think it says something when you're dating someone and you guys are so different and so diametrically opposed that you can't sit and have a conversation. I think that they do this collective parentage thing because it's very convenient for them. I think that in terms of finances, it's pretty smart. I think that these people didn't want to do a ton of traveling between long distances. And I understand why it would work. Like economically, it makes sense to me. But there are some things about this that made me pretty uncomfortable. I mean, one of the things that has come out, and I'm not going to get into too much detail about this because I don't have all of my facts straight right now. But I know that Sean has had a handful of allegations made against him. Allegations of questionable behavior with people who are younger. Apparently, when Sean met Taya, Sean was her manager at her work, right? That already was very questionable. Then you find out more stuff, and it seems like Sean has a lot of questionable interactions with people. Apparently, he does have a family already that he has cut contact with, and that is questionable. And to me, when I think of the downsides of raising children in this way, I think about stuff like that. Right? Because I think it's very heavily insinuated, though this could be totally wrong, that none of those children are biologically Sean's children. And I think to some degree they sort of know that, right? And it is concerning to me that someone who isn't even the children's father has the ability to turn to the person who did father the child and attack them for wanting to be friendly towards their child because they punished them. That is very concerning to me. Very concerning. Like my red flags are going off, right? It's very clear that Sean wants to be a co-parent. And I think that that's great or whatever. But if I knew that my metamor met my partner when he had a position of power above her, and then I listened to him punish my daughter, yeah, I probably wouldn't want to be that close to that person. It also really does sort of seem like Sean and Alyssa are not very close at all. So question number 2 that I had for myself and my audience was, how would you feel knowing that your partner was having a child with another person? So in the show, Sean has a lot of anxiety about the parentage being known of the children. And I think it's really heavily insinuated that Sean isn't the parent of any of these kids, right? And it could be this sort of emasculating thing for him to suddenly, after trying so hard to have children with his wife, be in a situation where this new guy showed up. Oh, now she's suddenly pregnant. And that's got to be a thing for his ego. And I do get the vibe from the show that is what it is, right? That all being said, Oh, how do I feel about this? I feel, hmm. I'm trying to think of my partners who are likely to do this. So I make a point of dating men who don't want kids. I mean, that's part of the profile of men that I tend to go for. Are you a man who wants children, or are you very, very close to your family? If the answer to both of those questions is no, that probably means that we'll get along, right? I have one partner who I could maybe see meeting someone and wanting to have children, and I think that would be hard for me. I think that would genuinely be hard for me. Mostly because, that partner that I'm thinking about also has, cis women who are partners who he doesn't have children with, who he met before me, right? And so it would be kind of like, wow, so what were we for if you wanted to have kids? I think that would be one of my first thoughts, right? So I think maybe in my specific situation, I would feel a certain way about it, right? Um, I think it's been so long since I've dated a man who wants to have kids or is with kids that I don't even think I am very familiar with how those men think, honestly. So I probably wouldn't want to date those men. That's a funny thing I never thought of until this exact moment, actually. Like, I've had a couple of men that I've dated get women pregnant, and every single time I've seen it happen, I have felt nothing. Like, it wasn't upsetting to me because I was over that man. you know, I don't know how I would feel if I was currently with him and deeply in love with him. And yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I do find that it is incredibly important for me to be on the same page with my partners about children. That's why it's one of the first things I talk about. I don't think any of my partners want kids. I don't think any of them can. I mean, I know two of them have vasectomies for for this explicit reason. But yeah, it was really important for me to establish that they don't want that thing. So, my third question to myself and my audience has to do with Alicia's rules. And the question is, would I want to know the dirty details of what my partner is doing in the bed with a metamor? Would I want to hear the dirty details of my partner's sexual exploits? So I have a little bit of a divided answer for this one. Personally, for me, I don't date men who kiss and tell, typically. Do I have a lot of conversations with men about what I like, what I enjoy being done to me, what I like to do to them? Yes, yes. And sometimes in those conversations, we will talk about those various things, right? But I don't need to know the dirty details of like the people who I'm dating. I also don't think I would really care. I don't date men who do this, right? I don't date men who, yeah, I saw this girl the other night. She did this, that. Oh, blah, blah. I don't, right? Like, I don't date men who are like that. I don't think I'd be offended if I heard about it, but I don't date men who would feel comfortable doing that, right? All my partners have a mentality where what we do is what we do. And it's not even from like a shame thing. Like, I've definitely been in conversations with my partners, like all around me, and we're talking about something that we all do in the bedroom. Like, two of my partners, for example, are particularly into my nails, right? And so they both like my nails for a similar reason, and we've talked about that. But that didn't feel like a weird thing to talk about. Frankly, it felt like just a thing we were talking about, right? I guess it's like, on one hand, I'm not uncomfortable with it. On the other hand, I don't date men who would do that. And on the other hand, I'm totally open enough to hear it and feel indifferent to it, maybe curious about it. I guess you know what it is? I always accept that my partner's sexual person shifts between partners, right? And who I am with Edward versus who I am with Nathan versus who I am with Alexander. These are all very different sexual persons, right? What we do in the bedroom is different. There are certain people who are better at certain things. There are certain positions that work better with certain people, right? I don't think talking about that is necessarily bad, frankly. That seems like a non-issue, if I'm being frank. I think what I see in the show is that Taya is the more openly sexual person, And that means that a lot of times the men are going to feel more comfortable being open about their sexy time with her, right? Taya isn't ashamed of these things, right? Also, you guys are all in the same house, right? Um, it's maybe just one of those things where they all do feel comfortable talking about it. You're just the one who doesn't. And I actually don't have an issue with her having that position. I do think it's kind of interesting though, because we also know that the only reason these rules really exist about who can have sex with who when is because of Alicia, right? Like she wants these rules. She thinks that these rules sort of like fill in the blanks a little bit for Tyler wanting to spend so much time with Taya. But I think it is the natural result of things when a person is very open for them to be more comfortable expressing that towards them, right? It's hard to be emotive sexually towards a person who you think isn't going to be receiving it well, right? And if I'm being frank, I've definitely observed and been part of the dynamic of the couple who the wife is a little bit more vanilla. I'm the kinky weird person, right? And so I end up getting the, attention like that. And it sucks. It sucks. And I kind of get the sense that that's what happened with Tyler and Alyssa, right? Where, yeah, she's not like a prude or totally vanilla or anything, but she's also not open. And Taya is. I know a lot of men have anxiety about, especially right now, they have anxiety about expressing sexual desire towards a woman who isn't interested because they don't want to be accused of something, right? And so I know that for a lot of men, the smiling woman who is eager and open about it, talking openly about it, those are all like signals of affirmation and acceptance that give them a bit more confidence in doing that thing. But yeah, I don't know. With Alyssa's rules, I honestly get the vibe that maybe they're not as comfortable being poly. I mean, I think that some of her boundaries make sense, but if you're at the point where you're raising children together, living together, you are trying to find ways for you to all be legally entangled with each other, it all just seems a bit like if you can't cross that line of just acknowledging that someone else has had sex, right? Like it just sort of seems like maybe this isn't the dynamic you should be in. And a lot of the people on social media seem to view Alyssa as a victim who is kind of like stuck in this relationship where she's being used for her labor. And I kind of see that. I do kind of see that. I mean, Taya is clearly the fun one. And it's clear that both Sean and Tyler sort of prefer aspects of her for that reason. Like the men clearly like Alyssa's like femininity and strength and organization and, motherly qualities, right? And Taya has some of those, but Taya is younger. She's a bit more open. And I think that it's kind of those things where men are often attracted to both of these types of women, right? And I think that it's one of those sort of situations. I hope that Alyssa is happy. She seems to be, of the people who is speaking out in defense. She seems to be one of the most outspoken about this. So I get the impression that she's not as disempowered as some may imagine her to be. But I do get the sense that people who have these rules are typically people who don't want to be polyamorous. And speaking of rules, another question that I had for myself and my audience is someone's sexuality a good reason to open a closed dynamic? So I guess we have to talk about closed dynamics first, right? So a lot of people who are polyamorous will sometimes reach a point where they're dating people who are dating each other, and that's going the way that it goes. And they decide that it doesn't make sense for them to be available to other people. And that's when they close the relationship. They no longer date new people and they're only kind of dating each other. I think that that's great. It's not something that we are currently in because, I mean, first of all, most of us are straight. So there's not really going to be a my boyfriend's dating my boyfriend's sort of thing. As hot as that would be, my boyfriend's dating my boyfriend's is not really an option. And that's not what the case is here. But I think that that's typically more common when you see the closed quad sort of thing, is they're all dating each other sort of thing. But obviously it doesn't just apply to that. Um, I have never been in a closed dynamic, so maybe what I'm saying here is a bit of a stretch. But this is a thing that you see all the time where there's a bisexual woman who's in a relationship that is hetero passing. She wants to dip her toes into the world of non-monogamy and maybe play sexually with another woman, right? Um, and maybe it's just that, maybe it's just friendship, maybe it's just a friends with benefits, or maybe it's a relationship, right? Like a lot of people that I've known who have explicitly opened up their relationships because they're trying to satiate a partner's bisexuality. A lot of times those are people who are just looking for sexy time. And I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that. That is kind of a different path than people who are pursuing relationships of love. But I'll say that that's a really common thing that I've seen, right? And we don't really know. We don't really know at all. We just know that Taya feels like she misses that part of the relationship. And there was a time where Alyssa would kind of humor her, and it didn't really go that way, right? And I thought in a way this was one of those things that existed in the show that wasn't true, right? Because it did become a debate about, well, just because someone is bisexual, does that mean that we get to open up the relationship because they want to be with a different type of person? And here's the thing. As a person who is often seen as the other, the weird, alphabet person who gets brought into a dynamic that is otherwise outside of the alphabet community, I don't love it. I don't love it. Personally, I don't love it. It's not my favorite thing. I don't like feeling like I am just the interesting, fun, sexual plaything of a couple, because usually that's kind of the thing, is we're only opening so that this person can get their needs met so that our relationship can be stronger, right? Like that's not what I'm looking for. It's not ever what I'm looking for. I think that it's a good reason to be honest about your capacity. And I don't know if even closing a relationship is necessary to consistently commit to each other. I think that's the interesting thing. You don't have to close a relationship. And this didn't really seem like a relationship that needed to be closed per se, right? The men aren't dating each other. The women aren't dating each other. The men are just dating both of the women. Usually people close their relationships, right? They close it when they feel like they are happy. When it's all working, everyone fits into place, and there's no reason to add anyone. I don't think you needed to necessarily do that just to say that you were going to be committed to each other. I think that's kind of the thing that makes me feel a little bit odd, right? Like you could still be open, and you could be open just to women, and we don't have to have a weird conversation about how we all should open if the pansexual person rather, is open, right? Because really, you shouldn't just be dating people out of boredom. You shouldn't just be dating people because you can. You shouldn't just be dating people because you have the ability to. You should be dating people because you want to date them, right? Or you have a similar reason to go out, and maybe that reason is fun, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to close it if it's not actually closed. I think that some of these rules are just not working for them. Like, I don't know a lot of people who are in closed dynamics, but just because someone's polyamorous doesn't mean that they're constantly looking for new partners, right? Like right now in my life, I could probably date a new person, and I could probably entertain the idea of dating a new person, but I am very clear about the fact that I have 3 local partners for whom I spend most of my time with. And for that reason, I can't give someone all of the things they want in a relationship where I would be more present, right? It just is what it is, right? So I haven't dated a new person seriously in quite some time. It's been 4.5 years since I met my primary partner, and I haven't dated anyone new since then, right? So it's not really this situation where just because someone's poly, they're always looking. And I think that's a really common misconception. And who knows, maybe they felt the need to say that they're closed publicly because that makes it seem a bit more legitimate, right? I think sometimes with stuff like this, there's this desire to make certain things seem more respectable than they are. There's some people who are poly who are very invested in making sure that, like, yeah, we're poly, but we're not weird, And some of you are weird, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like some of my partners are weirder than others, but we love each other and we love all of our weirdness. It would be okay for her to be an openly pansexual person who is open to dating women. And maybe not men, but women, right? Like that's super common. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So in conclusion, I think that PolyFamily was not worth the 6 episodes, so do not watch it. Also, it ends really prematurely. The show did get canceled, I believe, but I heard that they were only planning on making 6 episodes anyway. So I think they were setting us up for like a cliffhanger for season 2, but there will not be a season 2. So if you're someone who doesn't like that bullshit, like that's good reason to avoid PolyFamily. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that polyamorous representation is always going to be negative because people really aren't invested in positively representing polyamory. I think that would make for very boring reality TV. I mean, when I think about following me through my poly life, it's like, okay, I spend most of my time making food for my partner. And then I will also see my other partner who I will go on a date with. And then I will also see my other partner who I will go on a date with. And it's all very functional and we love each other. Like, it's not that exciting. It's really not. And I think that because of that, you will always get the more train wreck version of polyamory on reality TV. I think reality TV is the last place you should look for poly representation. A lot of times when I make these videos, it's tempting for me to say, this isn't polyamory or some weird bullshit. And I think that's sometimes what people want for me to say. But I have known plenty of people who have all of these pitfalls. It is very clear on social media that these people love each other and these people do care for each other, even if one of them is a little bit off, right? For better or for worse, their poly aspect seems to be very much true. And so it's never going to be me coming on here and saying, oh, so-and-so isn't poly. I know poly people who do these things. I just think there are bad practices. And unfortunately, I think that reality TV is a really shitty place to look for poly representation. Anyway, on that note, I will leave you guys with that food for thought. Please give me your thoughts in the comment box below. I always love hearing from you guys and hearing what you would have to say to all of the questions that I ask in my videos. So go through this video and answer all of the questions. I would love to read them. I am so sorry that I have not seen you guys for a bit. I have been working hard and doing stuff offline, my personal life, and surviving the world, right? So I apologize that I have not been uploading as frequently, but I am working on it. Just know that I'm always thinking of you. And I want for you guys to, stick around and come back, because if there's one thing that is helping me get through this moment in time that we're in right now, it's this. You do not even know. People on Patreon know. Speaking of which, Patreon is where you could go and see my vlogs. I upload a lot of vlogs about my personal and professional life. That is where I like to speak more directly to my audience. The last few vlogs that I've uploaded were pretty emotional. I'm sorry if they are triggering to certain people, but I am going through some stuff. I'm about to get on a plane and see my father on his deathbed. So, that is what I've been talking about on my Patreon. So if you're into that, go and check out that stuff on my Patreon. Also, you can join my YouTube members, where I do upload videos of me reacting to comments and other things that are interesting to me. I've been uploading a lot of stuff. Sometimes I do video notes, and I did do video notes for my video about decolonizing love, and I uploaded those as a video for my members only. So if that is something you're interested in, please go and check that out. Anyway, on that note, I will talk to you guys next time. And as per usual, I want you to always remember and to never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye.